So today I'm dealing with ornamental ranunculus, and when I say ornamental ranunculus, I don't mean buttercups in the sense of the bright yellow wild ones. These ones are very, very pretty. They're mostly double, and they are probably about, the flowers are about yay big, which actually that's not giving you much of an idea. So about 1.5 inches across. And what the tubers or corms, or I'm not entirely sure what you would denote these as being, they're like little fingers. So they're a bit like foxtail lilies, ericeums, in the sense that they're little stiff fingers. And these are ones that we bought a couple of years ago. They've flowered their socks off and they've started to lose vigour in the pots. So I've pulled them out, and some of them are, they've doubled their size, so to speak, and they need pulling apart and giving a new lease of life in this mix of compost here. So my mix in that sense, it's nice and light for little babies that like cool, free draining conditions. So we've got the Osmocote, like so, with a bit of perlite, and get that to focus. There we go. So the Osmocote is this yellow one here, and the perlite is that, and then we've also got vermiculite, and the perlite and the vermiculite are expanded volcanic rock, apparently. There's also a little bit of seaweed in here, and here's some that I've prepared earlier. You can see they've been planted up to their growing point. But here's one that I ran out of compost. So when you're filling pots, try not to leave them 1 inch, 2 inches under. This line here, this is a good place to fill them to. The reason being, you want a little bit of room at the top so that when you water, the water doesn't spill straight out. It actually goes into the pot and stays there. But you want the full depth of soil, and basically if it's too far down, you're creating a barrier to light. So it's been like being planted down a well, basically, and at the bottom of the well you don't get much light, and obviously if you're at the top of the well you get loads of light. So just think about it like that. Okay, so I'm just going to finish off tossing this chap up, and what you do, I always do a good tap, then a damn good shove. I'm not scared of squashing the soil, because it's a little bit of compaction isn't a bad thing when they're in pots. You want something that's quite tight, and obviously every time you squeeze that pot, the compaction is lessened. So there's that. Right. Now, to divide this chap here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very gently wiggle, and you can already see that there's an area where it's coming apart. You don't do it hard, just do it gently. So there's one, and I might be able to get a second, but I'm not going to push my luck with that one because it feels quite firm. Actually, there, you can see that there is a bit of wiggle. And just keep wiggling, just gently, because you don't want to break it. There you go. And look, now we've got 3 plants, and these are very small, so they might not flower this year, but they will flower in the years to come. And of course we've got lots of lovely food in here to boost them, so they'll keep going. Whereas this one, which is huge in comparison, can you see? That one probably will flower this year. So we're going to pot these ones up into smaller pots because you don't want them to sit and rot in cold, wet compost. And this one, we're going to go into a slightly bigger pot because we want it to flower. So we tend to reuse a lot of our pots, so we get sent all kinds of odd pots, and sometimes people are kind enough to clean them out, and sometimes not so much. To be honest with you, the only thing I'm particularly worried about when it comes to cleaning out pots is little seedlings, and that's only mainly because of damping off, which most of the chemicals on the market these days can't deal with damping off in the same way as they used to. Okay, so with a pot this size, I'm going to go for something along those lines. Not quite up to the flowering stage as the other one, but still a sufficient little tuber corm. I genuinely don't know what you would call that, because it's not a corm exactly. It's definitely not a tuber. I don't know. The root plate, shall we just call it for the time being, until I work out what it's actually called. So yeah, fill the pot up to about halfway, then put the tuber root plate in, refilled, tapped it down. You can see that the actual shoot, that's the level that the shoot is at. I don't know if you can actually see that, but I can feel it just very gently with my finger. It's just there. So I want it slightly below the point, and because it's not shot very far, it's not like this one here, but so that one is that particular variety. That one can have that there, but the smaller ones I'm going to need a smaller pot for, and I'm going to go with this size, 9cm, because again, don't want it sitting in cold wet compost. Now, right, I'll tell you how far down I put that. I'm going to have that a little bit higher, because we don't want it to have to struggle to reach the light too much, but equally we want to have nice deep depth of roots for it to go to, because a plant will always put its roots down to the lowest possible depth that it can. So you can see it's nestled just there. It looks so tiny and lost. And just making sure that there's no big chunks of compost. And I'm quite rough with how I backfill in that sense. I'm not worried. As long as I don't squash that growing tip in the centre, I'm not worried how deep I press down there. In fact, the firmer the better. So there you go, there's another one. This is my special one. I'm keeping this one for special. Okay. And one more just for luck. So to about that level. Pop it in like so, and backfill. There we go, job done. Now of course, once I've finished all these, I'll take them over, I'll give them a water, and then I'll sit them outside, because Ranunculus don't like being too warm. When I first started growing these, I used to mollycoddle them. I used to try and put them in the glass house in the nice and warm, thinking that they needed the warmth to get going. They don't. They hate it. That is the one guaranteed way to get them to fail, is to put them in a warm place. They want cool, they want moist but not soaking, and if you want to get them to flowering size, they will flower about April, May. Leave them outside. Don't put them in a nice warm place. I know that sounds completely counterintuitive because they look so delicate, but it's the only way I've ever got them to flowering stage. Before that, they just used to rot and fail. So yeah, a lot hardier than you would actually think. So Ranunculus, you don't see them very often. Well worth growing. They are absolutely gorgeous. They really are.